Hey everybody, GM, how is everyone? We are going to get started in just a couple minutes, but welcome to everyone that I can see in the chat. Keen to hear where everyone is joining from, where everyone's going to be hacking from as part of this hackathon. So please let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from, what city, what country. Spain, Malta, nice. What's up, Darby? Another Australian here. Good to see. Nice one. Okay, I think we are just about ready to get started now. I'm just going to make sure that we are good to go. Cool. All right, let's get straight into it. I am going to share my screen. Awesome. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. All right, let's get started. Welcome to this session. Welcome to everyone that I can see here. Today's session is going to be on gearing up for the hackathon. What are some of the tips and tricks that you as a developer or as a hackathon participant can use to create a winning hackathon submission? What are some things that you should know? What are some things that you should try and do to try and get the best possible results, to try and win some prizes and things like that. So I'm going to give you some special developer alpha in this session. So I'm very excited to have everyone here. So my name is Harry Papakrisou. I manage the developer advocate team here at Chainlink Labs. I'm very keen to interact with everyone on socials. So if you have Twitter, I just put or X, I guess it's called now. I just put my handle in the chat. I'd love to interact with everyone there. This is my sixth hackathon, sixth Chainlink hackathon that I'm involved in running and judging. And I think it's the seventh Chainlink hackathon overall. So the very first one actually was in 2020, and I was actually a participant in that one, and I ended up winning a prize there too. So it's cool to see the other side of the fence now and how everything works from the judging side, and I'm very excited to give everyone some tips and tricks today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is what makes a good submission, right? From our point of view, the judges, the people that look at the projects and judge, what do we think makes a good submission? And the first thing that I'm going to talk about is what I call the golden hackathon rules, right? These are the things that you should, if you don't do anything else, you should absolutely do these things at the very minimum, right? So the very first thing is please make sure all of your code, all of your documentation, and the video that you link in your project submission, make sure they're public, right? Make sure that we can see them. Because if we can't see them, we can't judge them. And then we have to go chasing it up. And then it just becomes a bit of a mess, right? And you don't want us to be chasing things up because there's going to be over 500 projects that we need to judge. So please make sure that when you submit, everything can be viewable. If for some reason you don't want your code to be publicly viewable, please reach out to us to find a way to share it with us. However, we strongly encourage all projects to have open source code where we can actually view the code, where other people can view the code as well, because that's what Web3 is all about, right? So the next thing is, if you say you use a tool or service in your hackathon, such as, this is a Chainlink hackathon, you need to use Chainlink. If you say that you use one of the sponsor tools or technologies, right, such as Tencent Cloud, make sure that you actually do use it. Don't just say that you're using all of these technologies so that you can win. Put your project to potentially win each of those bounties, but then you don't use them, because then we have to go through and see and work out, did you actually use these technologies or not? And then when we see projects that say they use this, and this, but then they didn't, we don't think too highly of that. And then, it makes us essentially waste time for nothing. So please make sure if you say you use something that you actually use it. And then the last one is, it's better to submit something that's working than something that's polished. So what I've seen a lot of the time before is people will get stuck on one part of a project or a submission, and they'll try and refine it and make it a Rolls Royce perfect thing. But then they don't look at the bigger picture and try and get a simple MVP working, right? It's more important to, if you can demonstrate an MVP that works in your video, even though it's not fully polished, you actually have a better chance than submitting something which has a small section that's really polished and looks amazing, but doesn't actually work, right? So that's another golden rule for everyone to follow. Now, I'm going to talk about our judging process here. I think, we try to be open and transparent in how we do things. So this is how we actually judge projects. So what we actually do is we get 3 people to judge each project usually from the DevRel team, mainly developer advocates, right? So we get 3 people because we want to eliminate biases, right? So each of the 3 people will judge each project based on a specific set of criteria, and then once they have judged those projects on that criteria, then they come to a final score. So we have 3 final scores, and then we average those out to come up with a final score for that project, right? So these are the judging criteria that each project will get judged on. The first one is user interface, user experience, and developer experience, right? So this is kind of self-explanatory. How cool does the UI look? How cool or how seamless do we think the UX looks? And what's the developer experience like based on what we can see in your project, right? So you get a score out of 5 from each hackathon judge for that. The next one is originality, right? So this isn't specifically to do with your code or anything, but we'll take a look at your idea, we'll take a look at your project, we'll take a look at the screenshots and the video and everything. And based on what we can see, we'll try and think, how original is this idea? Is it something that we see a lot of the time before? Or is it something new that solves some, problem that's there that we think is cool? So we will judge the project based on how original we think it is. So the next one is technicality, and this one is purely based on your code and your solution. So we take a look at the code, the architecture, all the different pieces that you have, and come up with a score of how technical do we think it is, right? Do we think it's just some basic implementation of a smart contract with some kind of UI on the front? Or is it a fully fledged dApp that has multiple smart contracts, front end, on-chain, off-chain parts, all kind of talking together, deployed on Tencent Cloud, etc. Right? So it's how technical is your project based on the code and the architecture. The next one is practicality. So this one is where we will take a look at your project again. It's more to do with the idea rather than the actual implementation. And we'll take a look and we'll think, does this sound like something that can be used in the real world? Does it make people's lives easier in some way or more efficient? Or is it just something that's using Web3 for the sake of Web3, right? So we will take a look at your project and judge it based on its practicality factor. And the last one is just the wow factor. Now, this doesn't have some tangible thing that can be attributed to directly. It's more about the vibe of your project. So based on the person looking at your project, they'll take a look at the code, the submission on DevPost, the description, the video, all those things, and then just judge your project based on how impressed they are overall, right? When taking everything into account, how much does this impress the judge? Sorry, are they like, whoa, this thing is like really cool, or are they like, it's not so good, right? So we'll judge the project based on the wow factor and the vibe we get just from everything that we've read and consumed to do with your project, right? So this is where a really good video actually can help with the wow factor, which I'll get into in just a couple of minutes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat and I'll try to get to them at the end. So my next tip for everyone is teamwork, right? So you can definitely enter hackathons solo and win prizes solo. However, if you want a chance at some of the top prizes, I highly recommend that you try and team up with other people and split up the work, because when you team up with other people, you can create more advanced applications, more complex applications using, solving, real use cases and things like that. So a good project will usually split responsibilities between team members as well. You might have, one or two people working on the code itself. You might have someone dedicated working on the front end, because the front end is kind of its own kind of dark art. You might have a project manager orchestrating comms and tasks between everyone. You might have someone creating the video and the dev post submission to try pitch it in a really cool way. So it helps if you get yourself a team. You're going to set yourself up for success, right? And things don't always go to plan. Sometimes team members leave or they don't respond and things like that. Don't let that fret you. Just kind of roll with the punches and go with it. And highly recommend everyone to try and find a team. I know we had a team building session. We have find teammate channels in our Discord, I believe. Feel free to reach out to people. Put yourself out there, show what you know, what you can contribute, what you're passionate about, or what your idea is, and try and team up with some other people. It's also a great way to meet developers in the community and people in the community too. These people might be your co-workers one day. Okay, let's talk about your submission next. So just fix this. So the way you present your project to us is actually really important, right? So please make sure you spend some time to refine this. Don't try not to submit it the last minute, 20 minutes before the deadline, if possible. In the project submission on dev post, you should try and craft a story, right? Tell us what is the problem that you're solving and how does the thing that you've built solve it, right? That's something we're very interested to see. If you're going for a bounty from one of the partners in this hackathon, tell us in the description how you're using it, right? How you're using the partner technology. And in the video, show us a demo of your project. Keep it to 2 to 3 minutes or 5 minutes max, but the shorter the better, because remember, we're judging 500 projects. Something that grabs the attention of the judges in the first few seconds can also help too, I found. Treat your video at almost like a TikTok video at first, where the first few seconds matter. So try and keep it short, succinct. Tell us what problem you're solving. Give us a demo to show that your thing actually works. There's going to be some more info on this where we're going to go deeper on the 27th of November at 2 p.m. ET. Solange from our DevRel team is going to be running a session called How to Submit and Pitch a Hackathon Project. So highly recommend everyone to check in to that session as well. The next thing I'll say is you don't have to start from nothing, right? Everyone kind of thinks they have to create a new dApp from scratch, and that's a hackathon project in Web3. That's absolutely not true. You can take an existing protocol or something, you can fork it, you can enhance it, you can do things, right? The only caveat I'll say is you need to be very clear in your submission in how you're doing this, right? You need to say, here's what I've done. I've forked Aave, or I've forked, some kind of protocol, or I'm taking an existing project, and these are the features that I'm adding to it as part of this hackathon submission, right? And so be very clear. Tell us what the existing code was and what you've built on top of that, so that we can have a clear distinction of old and new. But you can definitely take something and improve it as well as part of this hackathon. It's not all about building new things from scratch. Okay, let's talk about the bounty hunters next, or bounty hunting, right? So if you're trying to win as much prize money as possible, here's a couple of tips. So obviously, the better your submission, the more chances you have of winning, more prize money. So for these major prizes in our categories in the hackathon, take note of the criteria that I mentioned in this session and think, how do you think your project lines up against each of these criteria out of 5, and try and maximize your score there. So, and then also if you're going for a partner prize, if you're using some of these other technologies, it can also help to boost your winnings as well, right? So that's another cool tip. And I think for the very first time in the Chainlink hackathons, we are now offering bounty multipliers for additional Chainlink products that you use. So we have a base requirement of using Chainlink to make a state change in your submission, right? So that's always been the case. However, for the first time starting this hackathon at Constellation, if you use 2 Chainlink products or services in your project, you get an X2 multiplier in your submission when you get your project judged by us, right? So you get extra points if you use 2 Chainlink products. If you use 3 or more Chainlink products, you get a ×3 multiplier on your project submission when we judge a project. Right, very important. Now, you can't just use Chainlink products in your project for the sake of it. They need to be valid. So if you're doing some cross-chain DeFi app that uses CCIP and data feeds, and then you just throw on VRF to get a random number, but then that random number is not used anywhere, or it doesn't make sense how it's used, we're not going to consider that a third Chainlink product or service. So it needs to be used in a meaningful way that makes sense for the project. So if you guys want to try and achieve a higher score, take a look at your idea, take a look at your submission, and work out, is there a way where we can meaningfully use multiple Chainlink services in our project? Because if we can, we're going to get a better score. So yeah, it's essentially turbo mode. Great analogy there by Renan. If you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to us in Discord. If you have any questions around whether something makes sense to use, whether it makes sense to use one of the products in a particular use case, you can kind of pitch it to us. We can kind of validate it for you as well and say, yes, if you do that, it's counted as 3 Chainlink products based on your idea and the way you've kind of explained it to us. So next we'll talk about technical support. So obviously you guys are going to run into issues. It happens all the time. I spent a lot of time debugging issues when I was working in hackathons. We're here to help with Chainlink specific issues. If you have issues specific to using Chainlink, we want to help you. We want to make sure you're successful. You can reach out to us in Discord. We have a bunch of channels. We have a hackathon section. We have a technical section. Recommend you reach out to us there. We will be monitoring the Discord and responding. However, also, if you have a particular issue related to an error message or something very specific like that, highly recommend to create a Stack Overflow post and tag Chainlink. So the developer advocate team monitors Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange quite regularly, and we will respond there. And if you ask there, it's actually better, because then if other developers have the same issue, they will see it, right? That stuff gets indexed by Google and things like that. They can search on it, whereas Discord, it's not as easy to index and stuff like that. So yes, we're here to help. Chainlink Discord, Stack Overflow, and Stack Exchange for technical support. Now, this is going back to what I said earlier. Make sure you submit your project. Whatever you have, whether it's finished, whether it's polished, whether you think it's good, whether you think it sucks, please, please, please make sure you submit it. We still want to see it, right? So 90% of success is just showing up. And then once you show up, you should actually submit what you've done, right? No one runs a marathon and then, gives up because they're not going to win, right? You finish the marathon, right? So please submit what you have. We'd love to have a look at it. We think it's going to help you a lot, whether you think you are finished with it or whether you think it's any good or not. Please submit your project. Other than that, I don't have too much else to add. I just want to say good luck to everyone. I hope everyone has an amazing hackathon experience. This is looking to be it's officially our biggest hackathon ever based on signups so far. We want to make sure everyone submits their project. We want to make sure everyone gets all the help they need. We want to make sure everyone gets the support they need. We want to make sure people team up and build some cool stuff together and just enjoy the overall hackathon experience. So thank you. I'm going to see if there are any questions in the chat now. And looking forward to vibing and interacting with everyone in Discord and as part of some of the other sessions here. So I can see one question related to the hackathon here. I'm not sure I quite understand it though. Rough Buff, can you clarify if you're still here? If there will be a project, what will be similar to other projects from this hackathon? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you mean what happens if there's 2 projects that are similar, but if you're still around, love for you to clarify that question. Got a couple minutes more, so if anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask. Andres, how long does it take to get a response from the hackathon email support? I'm having issues accessing Discord and sent an email earlier. Okay. You should get a response within 24 hours. If you don't get a response, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat here, and I'll make sure that someone takes a look at it. Thank you, Andres. Cool. Okay. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I'm probably going to end it here. Once again, thank you to everyone for joining. Hope everyone has a great hackathon experience and really looking forward to seeing all the cool stuff that you guys build. Have a great day or great afternoon or evening wherever you are. Thanks all. Bye-bye.